Chapter 2, The New Tutor. The next morning you review your household expenses in the account books with your head of household, Miss Lambert. I believe this should read £12 and 2 shillings. See the error on line 26? My word, you are a sharp one, Your Grace. I knew we were paying too much to the chandler, but I couldn't find how. I'll be sure to sort this out immediately. I've no doubt you were clever enough to notice something was amiss. Abella erupts from the breakfast room, shaking the book in your hand. Sophie, come to the breakfast room at once. What could possibly be so important that he needs to yell at me from across the house? He certainly sounds like he's in a temper. My husband is so abominably rude sometimes. He can be a bit demanding, it's true, but my own late Harry was the same way. The rows we used to get into in the early days. And how did things progress with you and Harry? Oh, a few days without a hot meal, and he learned not to treat his wife like a servant. Servants can quit, after all. Miss Lambert quirks her lips into a small smile before returning to her solemn gaze. Still, you should be careful not to criticize the Duke too freely, Your Grace. The role of a Duchess isn't the same. I understand how difficult it can be to adjust to the station of being a wife, but others might not. You're right, of course. I hope I haven't gone too far. With me, heavens, no. Don't forget, I've worked for him for going on 13 years. I've nothing but sympathy. You run along, see what the Duke wants. I'll make sure things right with the chandler. And thank you kindly for helping me find the heir. You find the Duke languidly leaning over the breakfast table, slowly popping chocolates into his mouth. Good morning, Lawrence. That certainly took you long enough. Did you only just awaken? You swallow a biting remark and force yourself to answer civilly. I 8 hours ago. Though I'm sure I still have room for one of your sweets, if I might. I've never had a chocolate before. The Duke scoffs and barks at a laugh. These are far too expensive and delicate to waste on a woman's inferior palate. In that case, why did you want me, dear? Your tutor has arrived. You are to meet him in the nursery. He is here, but why the nursery? We are not children. Oh, I found this. Not much difference between children and women. They're just laying this on thick, aren't they? I mean, I get it. People like this do even still today to exist, but still. Anyway, surely this nursery is a wife's natural domain, no? Perhaps if a marriage is blessed with children, as a place for personal study. Enough arguing, you'll give me, dyspepsia. The point is, the man's in the nursery and you're to go to him, understood? Frustration vibrates through you, but you force yourself to swallow. You don't want to delay your much-anticipated lessons with bickering. Of course, I'll head there directly. Excellent, and try to keep it down. I have things of actual importance to attend to today. What, eating some more? I'm sure we can manage that. As you walk upstairs, your frustration gives way to a buzzing excitement, whether it's for the lessons or your new tutor you can't determine. In the nursery, you find Nate puzzling over the child-sized table and chairs. Does your husband not possess the presence of mind to consider a more suitable room? I know he thinks a woman's intellect ranks at the levels of child's, but surely he knows her body is made on a different scale. I suppose he just figured that this room wasn't in use. That's one view of the matter. Another might be that he doesn't care over much for the prospect of your education. If you ask me, it's frankly insulting. Of course, I already knew he felt my education was mere child's play, but it's meant to humiliate me. To be fair, he might not have thought even that far ahead. The Duke's mind doesn't strike me as particularly subtle. Already you have this character precisely. For whatever it might be worth, any man should be delighted to have a wife as curious as you. You might be the only man I've met who believes that. He smiles softly at you, gently taking your hand in his. But I was hired specifically for the quality of my brain, was I not? So there must be some value in the belief. With a little cough, you pull your hand away. You've been too free with your words. Of course. Now, shall we get on to the lessons? His gaze travels across the nursery before settling on you once more. It would be highly limiting to conduct your lessons here. Surely in a house as large, you must have another space available. If I am to teach you, I should know my way around, don't you think? You don't plan on letting this go, do you? One must pursue matters of education doggedly. Well, if I didn't know better, I would think you were simply trying to stir up trouble. I simply wish to be stirring you as much as possible. So, shall we take a tour and see what we find? Choose another lesson room. Well, if you're living in such a big house, why not? We have dozens of rooms that aren't being used for anything in particular. Surely the Duke can't object to us finding one more suitable. I thought you might see it that way. So, shall we set off? I always have wanted to explore a house like this. Yes, let's go. You and him head out into your still new home, eager to see what else you might find. You come across a portrait gallery with the extravagant oil paintings of dozens of unfamiliar individuals. Can you imagine yourself instructing me with all these sad ancient eyes on you? Some of these paintings date back over 7 decades. I didn't realize the Duke's lineage was so storied. I'm not sure it is. The Duke only recently received his title. He inspects one of the paintings more closely. From the court of Ferdinand III. Unless your husband's lineage is more international than we knew, I'm guessing he purchased this off of someone longer on titles and shorter on ready money. It peers up at a painting of a man whose mouth is hanging wide open. The painter must have a vendetta against this one. Perhaps the sitter saw a ghost just behind the painter's shoulder. Or perhaps the painter was himself a ghost. They say a painter pours her own spirit into her works, after all. I'm sure we're giving into a mere flight of fancy. Surely a painting couldn't... Oh, it's coming over me. I suddenly feel the urge to paint poorly. He stumbles towards you, arms outstretched stiffly, and you can't help but squeal and jump away. Stop teasing. Thank goodness, the presence of a beautiful woman seems to have exorcised the spirit. You flush, continuing to wind through the gallery. One charcoal sketch stands out among them all. Heavens, why is this in here? Your husband certainly has an eclectic taste. His eyes alight over the sketched figure, admiring her every curve. I wonder who she is. But the Duke fails to realize, as he has already selected an uncommonly attractive wife, there's no need for a sketch like this. It's true. Once you have someone in your life, your eyes shouldn't be on no one else. His gaze shifts to you, his eyes just as curious as they were looking at the painting. I can't believe she would pose like that. It's so intimate. You'd be surprised at how many cultures have art like this. Romans, Greeks. His lips find yours, his voice lowering to just above a whisper. A special bond between artist and subject, like there are only 2 people in the world. You could always join their ranks, should you wish, Duchess. It depends who the artist is. And if the artist is me... Heat floods your cheeks as you imagine it. You laid out bare before him, every curve on display just for him. The indecent thought sends an unfamiliar ache to your core. If only I could pose for him now. His lips curl into a mischievous grin. Could he possibly know what you're thinking of? You tear your eyes away from the sketch to admire a portrait of a brother and sister playing in the sitting room. This one is rather nice. Unusual choice for a portrait, but I like it. It looks more natural than forcing children to sit still. His gaze travels across the portrait gallery once more before landing on you. Still, when your husband eventually commissions a portrait of you, you'll surely outshine them all. You flatter me, Mr. Pippin. Would I be a wise tutor if I didn't flatter my noble and, might I add, stunningly beautiful patroness? It's the second time you've mentioned my beauty. Now I know you to be a flatterer. On the contrary, you know I mean it. I also know now that these paintings will distract you from whatever lessons you have planned. No more than your face, Your Grace. Butterflies flutter in your chest as you head out of the portrait gallery, but you do your best to ignore them. Before long, you find a room that's almost bare of furniture. It seems His Grace has not finished moving into this room. Thank God. I thought I was to have no rooms to leave my stamp on. I think you've already leaving your stamp on this place. It's not all about your brocade you use on the stools, after all. Oh, and what stamp have I left, Braytel? This, our arrangement, I mean. It's not unusual for a lady in your position to make the effort to educate herself further. Rather still for her to actually achieve that desire. I suppose I've always loved learning, much to my mother's despair. I'm quite lucky His Grace overlooked my little quirk when courting me, and that he's indulging it now. Your husband is the lucky one. A woman with a curious mind is truly a rare gift. Side note, I myself would love... I've always been a person that loves to keep learning, and I encourage everybody to at least learn one new thing every day. It's too bad life demands so much of us to earn tons of money to barely survive, right? Because it would be nice to do with the things that you want to do to better yourself and maybe humanity, wouldn't it? Not that he seems to realize that. I had hoped the Duke and I would have more in common. I knew our interests didn't precisely align, but I hoped he might at least want to know more about me. In a way, it's simpler that you don't have much in common. Oh, I'm not sure how that's simpler. Well, if he were half a friend to you, you might be obliged to devote more of your time and energy to him. As it is, he's given you a license to pursue your own pleasures in your own way with whoever you can help you find them. That's certainly one way of looking at it. His lips curl into a lazy smile and you find yourself feeling heated, though the day is cool. Perhaps we should continue on. This room surely won't do. If you insist, Your Grace, I'm sure we can find a suitable study room for you to make your mark. You hurry out, footsteps almost as fast as your beating of your heart. Soon, you become the Human Torch because of how many times they keep commenting about her warming up. Am I the only one starting to notice this about all the books recently? Soon you come across a magnificent library, clearly as tall as an entire manor, stacked with rows upon rows of heavy volumes. It's beautiful. You breathe in the smell of dusty pages. Imagine yourself hidden away here, alone on a rainy evening. You lift a volume from the shelf, caressing the binding. This would be the perfect place to pursue your studies. But His Grace likely has some other use for the room. Actually, I don't believe he does. The library came with the house. I don't think he even has taken an inventory of the books. Honestly, I'd be surprised if he set foot in here since we returned from our honeymoon. It would be well suited to our lessons. Not only will you have all the reading material you could want. He moves up behind you, lowering his voice to a whisper, the words in your ear. It will be very private. Though he's still a few inches away, you can almost feel his body, a shiver running over your skin and how near he is. Private, you say? Perhaps we should close the door during lessons. After all, we wouldn't want to disturb anyone. My husband particularly asked to keep to ourselves. To ourselves, locked away in this room full of secret nooks and out-of-sight corners, just the two of us. Your heart quickens as the air between you crackles to life. You've never spoken so boldly with a man before. Indeed, you've barely let yourself think of sorts of thoughts you find springing to mind in his presence. Only if you agree that's best. Oh, I think it's very much the right decision. He turns to face you, his leg brushing against the fabric of your skirts. The silk rustles against your skin, softer than any caress. After all, scholarship can get very loud. Especially with a woman such as yourself. Sorry. Oh, in my mind I read that such as a man such as myself, and then, no. What do you mean? His gaze drops to your lips, you're not sure why, but the conversation feels dangerous somehow, and yet you can't imagine stopping him. You drift closer to him, a body thrumming with an energy you can't understand, an energy you felt for the first time that night at the ball. Only that I fully agree with you, the more privacy the better. No one has ever looked at you before the way he does. Just as strange as an answering fire in your chest. Don't you agree? Your skin is heating all over. You've become the Human Torch, body swaying towards him almost unconsciously. I don't... Your lips part as he lifts a hand hovering just above your waist. And then the grandfather clock rings loudly, chiming 10 times for the hour. Startled, you take a quick step back. I suppose we found a good location for our studies, yes? Absolutely. On that note, I suppose we should begin. He settles in one of the chairs. He motions for you to join him at the chair next to him. Surely, it would be improper to be so close. An image flashes in your mind. His knee brushing yours beneath the grand table, you swallow hard. A thrill runs through you as you sit next to him, leaving very little space between you. Why can't I resist the urge to stay away? Because the book has made it to where your husband's a complete piece of shit, and you want someone who treats you better. His eyes watch you, almost hungry. He flashes a coy smile. I, too, prefer to learn in more intimate settings. And what will our first area of study be? Anatomy. From his satchel, he unveils a packet of embroidery silks, a needle, and a cloth. Needlework. You're planning to teach me needlework. I know. You wouldn't expect a gentleman such as myself to know the first thing about the topic, but I assure you I'm more than prepared to instruct you in the subject. My upbringing was quite unconventional, very open-minded. Every lady of quality is brought up doing needlework. It's the last thing I'd need a tutor for. My, if I'd known it would make you so fiery, I'd have started with knitting. You can't seriously think I brought you here to teach me to sew and knit, can you? He puts away the needlework and removes some sheet music from his satchel. Why don't we start with the pianoforte instead? Do you play? Of course I do, and I assure you more practice will in no way enrich my mental landscape. Fine, then French. You groan, unable to conceal your frustration. Je ne sais quoi. Oh god, he's actually going to speak French. Vous ne voulez pas le parler? That perhaps Italian instead. I've heard it's quite fashionable amongst the newer set of nobles. Shoulders tense, you fix a fiery gaze onto him, determined to make him understand you. I want to learn real subject. If I want content with French and needlepoint, I'd have no need of you. Well, clearly the Duchess has loftier plans for herself. As a humbled hired tutor, I was merely starting with the subjects of all other ladies of my acquaintance have been interested in. I'm not like the other ladies you're referring to. Are you saying you're better than them? What? No. If they truly were content to focus on such things, I'm glad for them, but I'm not. Being condemned to a life of parties, embroidery, gossip, shopping, the idea is stifling. I wanted a tutor to enrich my mind, to help broaden my horizons, not simply someone to sit with me while I sew. I see. And what horizons would you like to pursue, Your Grace? I want to learn about history, literature. I want to read the great poets and discover the mysteries of nature. I want more than what I've been allowed so far. Surely a tutor as liberal as yourself understands that desire. That's a challenge. He smiles at you, lips quirked in amusement. Ah, if we're talking of desire... There's a knock on the library door, and a moment later, Miss Lambert comes in, glancing around the grand chamber. Your Grace, I hope I'm not interrupting. Not at all. What is it, Miss Lambert? Would you mind looking at the kitchen accounts as well? Only you were so clever with the household accounts this morning. Perhaps you'll notice something I haven't. He perks up, eyes brimming with curiosity. Household accounts. And how is the Duchess helping you with those? I noticed a discrepancy in the books, but I couldn't figure out what was wrong. Her Grace noticed we were overpaying the chandler in trice. Thank goodness Her Grace is such a sharp one. I've never met anyone so good with figures. And I'm more than happy to put that knowledge I have of a matter at your disposal, Miss Lambert. You take the book from her and quickly review the account, scanning it for errors, and then hand it back to Miss Lambert. Everything looks in order, Miss Lambert. Thank you, Your Grace. Only it's nice to be certain, you know? With a bright smile, she bows and departs. He turns to you, frowning thoughtfully, as though he reconsiders your original lesson plan. So you have a head for figures? Yes, though I never did get to study much beyond basic accounting. Even that my governess taught me on the sly. She thought if a young woman knew how to read account books, then men might not drive so many families deeply into ruin. A smart woman. It appears we both had an unconventional upbringing. He leans forward, intrigued. You mentioned history, literature, and clearly an aptitude for math. Why don't we test your knowledge? Do you know the name of Mark Antony's lover? Oh, God. I hated history, I'm gonna be honest. I don't think it was Cleopatra, and I don't think it was Guinevere. I think it was Annie Boleyn. A historical lover of renown, to be sure, but from the wrong era. Anthony was the lover of Cleopatra. I don't goddamn know. Oh, give me a break. I'm not gonna Google this shit, okay? It's just I hated history. But anyway, I suppose I shall have to read up on the subject. Let us continue. Tell me what you know about the Iliad. Great. Please, someone help me. It's a story of Achilles during... I want to go with the Trojan War? I can't fool you, can I? You certainly try. And I plan to. What is 3 to the 3rd power? 3 to the 3rd power. 3 to the 3rd power. I want to go 27. Correct. I suppose your work with the household accounts should have been a hint. I mean, I guess. Have I answered all your questions to your satisfaction, or do you want to test my knowledge further? Nah. Nate looks you over. Considering, as your eyes meet, you feel like he's staring into your soul. There's some room for improvement, but a good effort. Perhaps I underestimated you. Ah, but to underestimate me, you'd have to estimate me first. And I'm quite certain you hold me in no esteem at all. Witty, too. I willingly admit I was wrong to bring you such dull topics of study. Mea maxima culpa, Your Grace. I've been hired by many noble families, but I've never met a woman so eager to learn as you clearly are. I accept your apology. He steps closer to you, even though I thought he was sitting down in the chair next to you, but moving on, his lips quirking to one side in a coy grin. Clever, gracious, do your excellent qualities never cease? I suppose you'll have to find out soon enough. Though, to avoid further errors in judgment, it's likely wise to assume they know no bounds. Or don't assume at all. I swear on all that's holy, your grace, I shall never doubt again. His tone is so sincere, you know he means every word. Your cheeks warm and you clear your throat to move on. So the lesson plan of pianoforte and continental languages will be abandoned, yes? I've already forgotten it. In fact, perhaps you're ready for something a little more advanced. What would that be? Poetry. Do you know the poems of John Donne, perhaps? Death be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. He smiles with a twinkle in his eye. Impressive. Few of your station have heard of Donne, in my experience, but he's written other poems besides the holy sonnets. Oh, what kind of poems? He leans close, eyes growing heavy with suggestion. Have you read any of his more stirring poems? They deal with more amorous matters. They're not proper for a young lady's eyes, of course, but now that you're a married woman and so eager to learn, they're a wealth of imaginary and passion. Perhaps we could study them in the gardens for fuller sensory experience. Absolutely. There's a daring spirit inside of you after all, it seems. By all means, let's get started. You head to a shelf to find a volume of Donnie's poetry. You reach for it, but he grabs your wrist, stopping you. Not that volume. It's this one I mean to teach you from. He gently guides your hand over to another book from the shelf. A heat rises within you upon contact. He leads you out to the gardens after you've taken it. Why this book, and not the others by Donne? The poems in that volume are religious devotions. These are devotions to women. This sounds exciting. Oh, and what about it excites you? I'm not entirely sure, but romance is meant to thrill the soul, yes? And the senses. Yes, but he doesn't stop at mere romance, and the soul isn't the only thing he's meant to thrill. You feel yourself brimming with anticipation, body sparking all over, though you're not entirely sure why. But we should go somewhere more private. I wouldn't want our studies interrupted. You move deeper into the gardens, out of sight of much of the house, and settle on a secluded bench. We'll start with a favorite of mine, Sophie. Why don't you read it aloud? He flips open to a poem. Your breath catches in your throat when you read the title. To his mistress going to bed. Is this appropriate? You'll have to find out. You clear your throat and skim a finger along the first few lines of the page, your nerves suddenly brimming with a strange eagerness. Come, madame, come. I'll rest my powers, Deafy. If I, off with that girdle, like heaven's own glistening. I get it. His gaze lingers on you, watching every reaction closely. Your heart quickens as you imagine the woman removing her most intimate garments. No wonder, he said, this isn't appropriate for unmarried women. Go on. Unless it's too much for you. Swallowing hard, you continue. Unlace yourself, for that harmonious chime tells me from you that now it is bedtime. You can't help but picture the soft curves of a woman's breasts heaving as she loosens the strings of her corset for the speaker's eyes. It quickens your blood, but not as much as the sense of Nate's eyes following the line of your throat as you continue through the poem. A smile tugs at his lips as he watches you, captivated by the every reaction, and heat seems to flood your body under his gaze. Off with that wiry coronet, and show the hairy diadem which on you doth grow. Hairy diadem, whatever does that mean? Your heart pounds at the sight of his devious grin, threatening to escape the confines of your corset. He asked his mistress to undress, yes? Well, yes. You watch his lips closely with anticipation. Even in your confusion, you know the conversation has dipped into dangerous waters. And what hair might he only see then, once she removed all of her garments? Oh, yeah, back then, you know, it was al natural. Oh my god. I don't know though. Like, I get it, it's a poem, but at the same time, like, really? Like, oh, you couldn't have, like, wrote a poem about anything else. Oh my god. That's by today's standards going, do the drapes match the curtains or such shit, whatever they say nowadays. Let's be honest. That's quite an intimate thing to say. That's even more confusing. I'm gonna go with more confusing. And what about it confuses you? I don't understand why he compares it to a diadem. Because it is the crowning glory of all pleasure. Any ache or longing, it starts with the heat you feel between your legs. But what does that ache mean? He responds slowly, drawing out every word. His breath whispers over your skin, sending a delicious shiver down your spine. Bitter desire, satisfaction, and release, the kind only a lover can give. You inhale sharply, feeling a shiver run through you. Your skin is heating all over, alive with the implication of his words. You find yourself leaning closer, magnetized by the heat in his eyes, a heat you feel catching in your own core. Why don't you continue reading? You force yourself to turn your eyes back to the page, but you can still feel his eyes on you, traveling over you more intimately than any caress. License my roving hands and let them go. Before, behind, between, above, below. Your fingers tremble as you hold the book in your hands. Your breath comes out in hot, ragged bursts. Your bosom begins to heave against the confines of your corset as you read on. As souls unbodied, bodies unclothed must be, to taste whole joys. Imagine the naked lovers intertwined together as bodies joined in a heated embrace, because we need a description even though the poem just gave it to us. He hovers just over your shoulder. This close, you smell his particular smell. A mix of fur, tree, sunshine, and spice you can't place, but long to taste. To teach thee I am naked first, why then, what need do you have for more covering than a man? You pause to collect your thoughts, your pulse racing, your skin flush with warmth despite the cool breeze. What did you think of the poem? Overrated. I still do not understand it all, but why is this man so covetous for this woman? Why would he want to see her laid bare that way? He considers you, wrinkling his brow together to think of a way to explain. You and your husband on your wedding night, did you consummate the marriage? He rises to your cheeks as you force yourself to answer his question. You've never spoken of anything so intimate, and yet you find yourself wanting to be laid bare to him. Particularly in this way. We did. And since? Of course not. He respects me enough to leave me alone. Well, not all unions are like that. Sometimes men and women enjoy that side of things quite a lot, actually, married or not. Your head spins as you wrestle with his words, the heat in your cheeks spiraling down between your legs, pulsing there pleasantly. And do you enjoy that? That's a really stupid question. Go with the other one. Your curiosity has you dangling by a thread. You grasp on yourself, increasingly precarious as you wait in anticipation for his answer. His hand runs lightly up the inside of your forearm. You gasp at the intimacy of the touch, the way it reverberates through every inch of you. Well, first there's a feeling of soft skin against skin, the heat of passion mixed with the scent of your lover that consumes your mind. His eyes darken, going hooded with something you instinctually recognize as desire. Your heart is pounding so hard you feel as though it could leap out of your chest at any moment. Feeling your lover taste you, pulsing, shaking against you, your own body responding outside of your control. You are left breathless, hanging on his every word, desperate to understand. And then, when there's a true communion between you and your lover, you reach the peak and feel sweet release overtake you. An echo of what he describes ripples through you, every nerve alighting at once, a sensation completely new to you, and entirely welcome. Between ragged breaths, you stare up at him and see his self-satisfied grin, the image of the fire in your belly, stirring some dormant desire. Have you ever felt anything like that? For my husband. For anyone. I don't think so. Are you sure? Moves closer still, his gaze knowing. I'm not... Not for anyone. No stirrings of desire. I need to touch and be touched. His eyes darken as his gaze meets yours, daring you to answer him. You shiver at the feeling, your face heating beneath the intensity of his gaze. He whispers in your ear, a breath dancing along the nape of your neck like a caress. Would you like to find out? You part your lips and exhale a shaky breath, trembling at the thought of him, closing the gap between the two of you. The mere thought ignites wild desire as he hovers there a mere breath away from you, capturing your lips. Hypnotized by his gaze, your eyes flutter closed until suddenly he snaps the book shut and takes it from you. I think that's enough of Dawn for today. Any more, and well, I'm not sure there's privacy enough in the world where we would read further. What are you saying? Your poetry lesson turned into something more intimate. No, really. His lips curled devilishly as his eyes drop once more to your mouth, and then with a shake of his head he moves away. This lesson is over for now, but I do hope we'll have a chance to revisit the subject very soon. Sometime later, you and him sit in the dining room, eating the lavish lunch the servants have placed before you. A footman stands behind you, ready to assist as needed. He sniffs loudly as Nate lifts his glass. A bit more wine, if you please. Yes, sir. Though I will note, your grace, how irregular it is for a tutor to take his meals with the rest of the household. I don't see why. And frankly, it seems to me even more irregular for a footman to question the wishes of the lady of the house. You are quite right, your grace. I only meant... I'm sure you won't make the mistake again, yes? Right, of course not. In fact, I think I hear Miss Higgins calling. I better see what he wants. The footman bows and quickly makes his exit, rushing off to the invented demands of your butler. Nat considers you carefully. I say you're warming to the role of Duchess quickly. If I'm going to be expected to live within the strictures of the role, I may as well enjoy the perks, no? My thoughts exactly, besides power becomes you. You bite back the pleased smile that teases your lips at the compliments, rerouting the conversation to safer channels. I enjoyed running the household. It occupies my mind. A good thing, too, as my husband's rarely here to engage in conversation. Though, now, of course, I'll have our lessons to keep me occupied. As the two of you return to your meal, your mind wanders, marveling at what more he could teach you. What do you think you shall teach after luncheon? His lips twist into a devilish smirk. Eager for another hands-on lesson? Your pulse raises, desperate to satisfy that ache his lesson left you with. He could possibly teach me more poetry, right? So many possibilities the mind baffles. He reaches across the table and trails his finger along your arm. Perhaps how the humors interact, what can cause one's pulse to race, one's body to ache. You nail sharply at his touch. He brushes feather-like circles against your wrist, pulling you into his orbit. And what does cause that? You lean in, hanging on his every word. But the door certainly burst open, and you and him spring apart as the Duke marches in. Good, you're both here. Cancel the rest of today's lessons. Pack your things. We've been invited to a country house party. We leave tomorrow. Glance over at him, your heart racing at the close call, the ghost of his touch lingering on your skin. If the Duke came in a moment sooner, what does that mean when we're going away together? Without further ado, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Head down description. Plenty of cool things to check out, links, etc. With that being said, let me know in the comment section below what you think of the book. I don't know. I could sit here and be blue in the face. Everybody has a different moral compass. For me, the husband treats you like crap. I mean, I went over this last chapter when we first started this book, and I'll go over it again real quick. I get it, right? She's married into a happyless marriage. She did it for, again, for her family to survive, and pretty much her husband pays her no mind. And again, things back in the day were completely different, right? So, this is horse-drawn carriage times, pretty much, where pretty much divorce would be the man kept everything, if not took everything away from you, and a lot of women stayed in very unhappy marriages. Men and women themselves all often took lovers, both the men and the women. There were a lot of men who were not into women also. This is something to keep in mind. Who were not into women, who also had to marry to keep the illusion up while they were in love with a man, or maybe they... A lot of people are different, right? Some people don't crave bounce chicka wow wow like others, and some people crave it more so. And again, humanity is weird, right? That's a good thing, though. Everyone's different. Everyone's different. And probably I'd have to say, out of all the people I know, I am probably the most open-minded out of all my friends and everyone else, my family especially. I'm someone who's extremely open-minded. I'm pretty much off living in the 23rd, 24th century, while everyone else is still stuck as if it's the 80s. Um, maybe 2000s, but no. Everyone else is pretty much stuck in those times, and I'm off living in the future. I don't care about who, what, when, where, or why. I think everybody deserves love. I think everybody deserves happiness, and I think, as long as you're doing it without hurting other people, you should do what you need to do and find the love that you need to find. And the whole... we live in a world right now where there's a lot of division too, based off of, skin or, gen or all this other crap. To me, it's pointless. I'd rather just know your name and get to know you and get to know what drives you and your hobbies and just shit like that. Again, I feel like I'm a vampire. Someone asks me how old I am, and I go, cat, dog, or vampire years, because I'll say this and then we'll end the video. I just too old to explore the world, right? Even though the oceans have not been fully explored, but that takes a lot of gizmos and gadgets and technology we still don't even have to this day to fully deeply explore the deepest ocean bottom. And then, you clearly can't just be like, all right, I'm beaming up to the ship right now, and we're gonna go explore Uranus. I just had to. So yeah, too early to explore to the universe, unfortunately. Maybe one day if humanity plays its cards right. Otherwise, we're all stuck on stupid shit. Thanks for watching. Catch y'all later. Peace out.